Great Scott! I declare bankruptcy!
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Depression? Isn't that just a fancy word for feeling bummed out?
Dwight, you ignorant slut!
Not only the years we've been at war, but from the moment, as a child, when we realized that the world could be conquered.
You're listening to Great Scott, the Office podcast. I'm Jay-Rey, and with me is my desk mate, Jacob.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We are here. We are done with Season 5. We are getting into Season 6. Season 5 was difficult, I would say.
It was tough. After starting to get to Season 6, like, it's just a breath of fresh air from the grind that was Season 5.
And I'll be forward with everybody. At this point, moving on, I pretty much don't like The Office anymore. It's hard. These later seasons are tough to me.
Well,
it's
our goal
really
is to make you like some of them or look at them as not so bad.
Well, that's your goal. My goal is to prove to you how terrible it all is.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be such an asshole. Ever
it's
think
just a
about
really
that?
different show. No, I never thought about that. Not one time in my life. Yeah, no, it's just different, you know. Everybody acts really differently. There's some big changes in the episodes we're going to be discussing today that occur that really change the Office dynamic a bit. I don't know, just not great. But anyways,
Anyway.
Remember the Broken Jars Broadcasting Network. So visit brokenjars.xyz to check out some of the other shows like High Fantasy and Dangerous to Go Alone and The Long Haul and the Dresden Files and all that stuff.
Right, and we are also sponsored by Zencastr. You should check them out. We may or may not be using the service because there may be some technical difficulties, but that's one reason why our past episodes have sounded so good is because of our good friends at Zencastr.
That's right.
And they are actually becoming like our friends, at least at the network. So, like, they were helping rep another episode of another podcast, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's good service and it's good stuff that they provide. it's all good, just good. So you visit Zencastr.com and you get
use promo code Broken Jars, all caps. You get 20% off your first order.
We love it, you'll love it. Zencastr, boom, roasted. So with technical difficulties aside, we're just going to get right into it. So we start out our season with gossip.
Right, which is, I thought was a really good way to get into it. They were like, they didn't deal with the summer. They didn't deal with any big things, really. They just got into the funny. So season 6, episode 1, written and directed by Toby himself, Paul Lieberstein.
Yep.
Has a great cold opening of parkour.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty classic cold opening to me. Just like super unconnected to the rest for whatever reason. You know, this is 2009, so to me, well past the point where parkour was like culturally relevant. But for some reason, the folks in Scranton, specifically Michael, Andy, and Dwight, just got wind of it, I guess. And
they do some weird time shifting stuff where it's 2009 and no one really has a smartphone yet. Like, Blackberries were big for 5 years. The iPhone's been out for 2. There's a lot of stuff where they just haven't quite gotten with the technology times. Yeah,
I mean, what is it? Season 4, Ryan tries to introduce everybody to the BlackBerry.
Right.
It doesn't seem to catch because we don't really see a lot of them kind of going. It's not really, I mean, maybe it's because of what I'm recalling off the top of my head, but it's not until Saber buys them and they start introducing that stupid Pyramid tablet or like all the touchscreen phones kind of more relevant in the show.
Right, but it seems like at least a guy like Andy would have an iPhone, you know? He's still...
Yeah, he's rich and
he's
just
rich.
Had it, right? Yeah.
I mean, hell, I bought my first iPhone in 2008. You know, like, that's a fun story that I may or may, well, I don't know. I won enough money at a poker game to buy an iPhone, so I bought an iPhone.
I see.
So anyway, so Andy, Dwight, and Michael are jumping all around the office, being terrible, breaking things, walking on people's hoods of their cars,
Right.
I mean, that's thousands of dollars worth of damage.
Yeah, but it's hardcore parkour, Jacob.
It is. But my only question is how much liability insurance does Dunder Mifflin have to have just because of Michael Scott? Millions of dollars a year.
Yeah, I mean that's assuming that the folks in the office make the claims or whatever. You wonder if they just have become desensitized to his behavior, that they just kind of deal with it.
Right, it's something we see later with Stanley just going ape all over Michael's car. But,
That's right.
But we have the great scene where they're on. I don't know how they got on top of Vance Refrigeration's truck, but they're on top of a Vance Refrigeration truck. They're like, okay, jump to the refrigerator, to this 360 spin backflip gainer.
Yeah.
And Andy is just full on go, which we see later on in Niagara as well. But he's full on go, so he just hauls and jumps in, and there's nothing in the box. Just falls straight through.
That's right. Yeah, no hesitation, right into the box, and that's kind of the end of their adventure.
He has this nice parkour, but I mean that would hurt so bad because I don't know how tall a 53-footer like that is, but it's probably at least 18 feet off the ground, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, and to answer your other question, how'd they get on top of the truck? Parkour.
Well, that's true too, but most of those trucks also have ladders, but...
Yeah, I mean, they could have climbed up the hood of it over the cab and stuff.
But I still have these feelings where Michael's like, hey, Bob Vance Refrigeration, can I do this thing? He's like, well, if you pay me enough. Oh,
sure. I think you're giving Michael more credit than I would have. I think he's just doing it. He's, but, yeah. So yeah, the crux of this episode, basically, we find out that Dunder Mifflin has some interns that they've had over the summer.
Right.
A white guy, an Asian guy, and an ethnically ambiguous girl.
I thought she was pretty white, but
I mean, she's pretty white, but she's got brown hair, so who knows? There could be some.
Right.
Who knows?
So Pam says this thing, and she's like, it's nice about having interns. Michael made way too many Monica Lewinsky jokes, so they shut down the program. So my question is so when they were trying to get interns and stuff in season 4, was that just a branch program? And not an official Dunder Mifflin program, and that's why they can't give college credit? Because in the end of this episode, they talk about giving college credit. So I kind of wonder if Michael is trying to get interns in season 4, where he doesn't really have the official backing of Dunder Mifflin.
Yeah, I mean, those kids in season 4, he says they won't get paid, they won't get college credit. I mean, they're basically slaves. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a weird thing because but apparently the internship program in Scranton has been dead for a long time. So you assume that them going to that college fair is more Michael just trying to get interns instead of Dunder Mifflin trying to do interns.
Right. Yeah, it's not the first time Michael has moved forward without approval from corporate. I'm recalling
every episode.
Well, it's the Dundies at Chili's.
Right,
where Jan pretty much flat out says that they're not paying for it because they've already had parties that corporate's paid for. And so the season 4 bit also seems like Michael maybe not just ignoring corporate rules and stuff, just assuming that people will be like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So Michael... There's a rumor going around, the employees are just gossiping about the interns.
That's right.
Which is, a rite of passage. You're the new guy and whatever. And Michael's really just upset that, no one's talked to him. And he talks to Dwight, and Dwight's all like, yeah, I've got this. He's like, I have a face you can trust, I guess, is my low cheekbone.
That's right.
And so Michael is just getting pissed off. I mean, just pissed off, right? So he starts like trying to figure out a way to become the in person.
Right.
And so he starts talking to the interns. Like one of them, I don't know exactly what he's doing, but it's the Asian one. I don't even remember his name.
Maury.
Huh?
Maury, according to Dunderpedia.
Yes. I don't have that in front of me. So he's like, oh, yeah, we saw Stanley out there.
Right.
And so that starts his domino effect.
Well, yeah, so Michael takes this piece of information as Stanley going through like a midlife crisis and not accepting his age, right?
Right, with his own wife.
That's correct. So as he starts trying to spread this rumor, Phyllis is the first one to shut him down, that Terry's actually out of the country on a business trip.
Out of town. I don't think it was out of town. And Stanley doesn't like young people, crowds, or music.
Right. So all that information from Phyllis's perspective is totally impossible for Stanley to have participated in any of that.
Right.
No wife.
And then Michael goes back and like starts berating the dude, like, you son of a bitch, you set me up. And I just feel bad for him, you know? Like, you can't do that as a boss, right? Like,
Right.
you just can't, like, you son of a bitch.
Right. You shouldn't do that as a boss. That's correct. You know, but it happens. Yeah, no. And then the interns kind of go on the defensive, and they're like, "No, well, we saw Stanley there with somebody."
And if it was his sister, what they were doing was purely illegal.
Yeah.
Hashtag incest joke.
That's right.
But like, I don't know. This is a weird episode for Michael because it's like full-on character study. Like, this is like someone wrote a character study of Michael, and then they were like, "Hey, we should make this an episode," because it shows his like how much he loves to be the center of attention, how much he hates to be left out. There's so many things going on with Michael here that's just like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, in the 5 years that we had seen Michael up until this point, he's made a lot of progressive strides toward being a better person. An episode like this just kind of sets him right back to like Diversity Day, right?
Right. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, it doesn't, I mean, it jives, but it also is just like a guy going, fuck it, you know?
That's
basically
right.
what it is.
So for some reason, he starts telling people this piece of information that he's heard that Stanley's cheating on his wife.
Well, because he loves it when their eyes light up, Jay-Rey.
Right.
I mean, come on.
That's
Don't
right.
you love it when someone's eyes light up? For me personally, I prefer the dead in the eyes look, but that's me.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if I could see their eyes light up, we're too close to each other anyways. That's the problem. No, so finally he gets to Jim, and Jim is like, well, you have to stop saying what you're saying because one, you don't know if it's true. And
Right.
two, if it
And
is
like
true,
Jim drops, well, one, we see this really weird window in Michael's office that's in the hallway.
Yeah. I mean, that's been there because that's how we watched part of the Did I Stutter?
Right. But it actually slides open. This is the first time.
That it like actually opens.
Yeah. So
Which is odd because Toby pointed out during Stanley's heart attack that the windows in the office facing outside don't open at all.
Well, I mean, that window doesn't open. It just opens into the hall. So you still have to like go through that main Dunder Mifflin door out that window.
No, I thought it was in front of Pam's office, her desk rather. Not, it's Aaron's desk now.
Right, but still, it's still in front of the door.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Toby says that the actual windows in the office that perform window functions don't open.
Okay. Yeah, I misunderstood what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that, like, you almost wonder what it used to be because it seems like a doctor's office, like window kind of situation where it used to be like closed off.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Doesn't that feel like a doctor's office thing where they have the window right there? And
well, I mean, Michael's office is like a substantial office, right? Like that is drywall and plaster and stuff that consist of his his surrounding area, as opposed to
Right. It was definitely built in. It wasn't, because the square of the office seems pretty
right.
open. So,
Because like Jim's office later on in this run of episodes feels much more like a pop-up office. Like there's some, floor to ceiling dividers that they kind of construct to give him this corner office, but it's definitely less.
but again, even with like that, like you would just think that assuming it was a medical office, they would have to have all sorts of billing stuff back there. Like they would need the space to be a medical billing office.
Sure.
It's just a weird thought I had when I was watching it. I'm like, man, that's just such a weird place for a window.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, people have still even drawn the, the layout of the office based on what we've seen thus far. And there's still like pockets of oddities,
Right.
Like there's the staircase that's over in between Andy and Stanley's desk in that corner where Dwight started the fire.
Right.
But we know there's a staircase in the annex to the left of the actual lunchroom also. But then there's also some type of weird closet / staircase that is all the way in the back by accounting. Because I would assume it's a closet, but again, during the fire drill, they try to open it as if it's an escape way. So that must be more stairs too.
Right, but that gets retconned in season 9 when we find out that's just the storage place for the camera crew.
Right. And that's also weird. I mean, it makes more sense that it's a closet, but it's still weird because isn't there a window by Creed and Meredith or no? Is it just wall?
I think there is a window, maybe.
I thought there would be, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way, it's a weird shaped building. From everything that we've seen, it just seems like a big box. But for whatever reason, the Dunder Mifflin offices don't really seem to fit like a nice Tetris shape. It's just like, we need rooms. Let's build this room and we'll film it. Yeah.
So, Jim drops the knowledge on Mike. He's like, dude, you might be ruining this guy's life if you're wrong, which is something Michael never considered. Ever.
That's correct.
Ever considered. So he stops Stanley in the parking lot, and Stanley plays it off for a little while, but then, he gets into it, and he's like, I told her we never should have gone to the club for the young people.
Right.
And so he admits to Michael that he's been having an affair with his
nurse.
His nurse. I guess he went through a lot of PT after his heart attack.
Or maybe they had like a live-in nurse or something. If Terry's out of town a lot, I don't know. Stanley's old.
Stanley is old, but it's just one of those, like, they would make the most sense where if he was, it would make most sense that she was like his like physical therapy nurse after his heart attack.
Yeah, I don't know anything about heart attacks unless I get one day. Then I guess I'll fill you in on what I figured out. But thus far, I'm a little unsure. But regardless, I mean, apparently Terry has. Well, that's later, but Terry has found them out previously. So this has been going on for some time. This thing between Cynthia and Stanley. Yeah.
Right, which would make sense, because stress relief was in the middle of season 5, so the timing works out for it to be someone related to that. But anyway, Michael is all like, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spread all sorts of rumors so no one knows which one is real, which is obviously a terrible idea. But we do get some very interesting rumers. That Andy is gay, which, I mean, that's low-hanging fruit. I mean, come on, Andy.
True, yeah.
Angela is dating an 81-year-old billionaire who owns a Quiznos on the Turnpike.
That's right.
That Kevin is actually a robot being operated by a tiny man, which is obviously Men in Black, but it's still pretty funny. Right. Oscar is the voice of the Taco Bell dog, which is such a dated reference. I think that was dated even then.
No, it totally was. I mean, that dog's been gone forever.
Like, I think that dog didn't even last the millennium. Was like a 99 kind of thing.
I mean, I think when it was around, it was a lot around like with force, but yeah, it was a short-lived force.
Yes. So we get all sorts of crazy things, and this completely destabilizes Andy.
Wait, I just got a few more. Dwight uses store-bought manure.
Our
Toby is a virgin, even though he's got a daughter. Creed has asthma.
right, and if he has asthma, then he can't scuba. Then what's this all been about?
What's all this for? Yeah. Aaron is a bad worker and will probably be fired. Kelly's anorexic. Michael's is a J. Crew model.
Nah, we heard that about Jim. No,
That's right.
I didn't say it about anybody. I was supposed to be about me.
That's right.
And he's worried that models are just too vapid.
That's it. So all this stuff is going around, and then we get some funny bits where people kind of come to a head with their own rumor.
And the big one is Andy. He's like,
Yeah.
so someone like Kevin was giving him shit for liking tea because apparently liking tea makes you gay.
Yeah.
I don't like tea myself, but that's not because I'm gay. It's just because I don't like tea. Which makes me a bad kid from the South because everyone from the South loves tea, but I cannot do tea. Like like genetically speaking, I'm supposed to love iced tea, but I just can't do it.
Terrible.
I know. But he's like, who'd you hear from? Broccoli Rob? Broccoli Rob? Psychi? Someone from my high school?
Yeah, and it even goes so far as to him reaching out to Oscar to get Oscar's opinion, and Oscar, by the end of that conversation, is like, "You might be gay."
He's like, I don't know. I might. I would resist for a little bit, but it's Brad Pitt.
Right.
And he's like, Brad Pitt would keep going if you resisted. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell Oscar's just confused as fuck about what's going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other terrible thing is like how little understanding most of the office has about gay people, because like every time Oscar has to like discuss his orientation, people come at it with like such weird like preconceived notions. Like, I mean, Michael obviously is the worst one, but Andy also coming in kind of wrong, and Angela obviously having a little bit more of a traditional point of view. Kevin thinks it's hilarious.
I think Kevin is the one who accepts the best out of anyone who actually talks about it.
Right.
Like, he just makes fun of him for doing it, but he doesn't really care. Yeah.
Right. So eventually it comes to a head, and Michael tries to bring everybody into the conference room to discuss it in the no, Jim, I think, is the one who suggests it.
No. They're in I think they're in the break room. They're in the break room because the intern, it's their final day, so it's sort of like a party. And that's where we get the great, one of you will have unlimited potential in business.
Right.
One of you will do just okay. And one of you will make a very great mother.
Right.
To the three interns.
It's terrible.
And so they're in there, and then all of a sudden, what pops it is Andy goes to Jim and says, "Congratulations on the little tuna."
Oh, right. Which is one of two rumors that are true, right?
Right.
Because I guess if we all recall, at the end of Company Picnic, we find out that Pam was pregnant.
Right. We as an audience know Pam is pregnant, but no one else actually knows Pam is pregnant.
That's right.
So Michael just got lucky with his guess.
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing, but he seems to have stricken like a personal chord with each person who has a rumor about them. Like Andy obviously goes off the deep end into thinking he might actually be gay, and he's not totally afraid of that. Creed obviously is very personally affected by the having asthma. Actually, it almost even might seem he has asthma.
Well, he says he doesn't. He says he doesn't. He's like, no, I don't. If that gets out, I won't be able to scuba anymore.
Oh, right.
Which granted, there are lakes and stuff around Scranton, but where do you scuba? Like, does he just go down to, like, the Atlantic and scuba there?
He speaks Chinese. You know,
I mean, he's a man
worldly.
of the people, so there's
Yeah.
no telling. He might be like scubaing in somebody's pool randomly.
Yeah, I
Like-
mean, when he went to Lake Wallenpaupack, he caught that fish with his hand.
Like 2 a.m., some dad walks out like, "Who the fuck are you?" And it's Screed just like scuba diving. And he's like, got a big sign that says, "Hi, I'm just practicing," or something.
That's what it is. Yeah. So they try to figure out who started these rumors, and they kind of take one and trace it backwards.
Right, and they all kind of trace it back to Michael, and Michael just nopes out. Like he's just
Right.
like he's sitting in the back of the room and he just walks away, trying to
Yeah.
get away from all of it. I mean, it's full on noping. You know, he's just like nope, 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 nope. But they catch him. They catch
Yeah.
him. Don't leave, and you know they bring it up, and Michael's about to say that Stanley cheated on his wife. And Jim and Pam realize what's going on, and for whatever reason, do Stanley a huge solid. They're just like, "Nope, we're pregnant. We're having a kid on the way."
Well, because also not for nothing, but that's going to come out. I mean, most women will properly show that they're pregnant because they are humans, you know.
Right, but you know they didn't have to, you know, and it's another couple episodes, it's another month before they get married, and she's not showing then. So I mean, they had some time.
I mean, but they're, you know, we're supposed to like them, Jacob. They're the heroes of the show. So they're supposed to do the good thing, even though they may not be the best people either. Aaron is the real hero, obviously, but yeah, no, they do it. But Michael isn't picking up on it for
But they
whatever
didn't
reason.
have
And
to. I mean, they didn't have to do it.
mean,
You know, it's
no one has to do anything. Michael didn't have to go around gossiping and talking ish. You know, I mean, again, the point is we're supposed to like someone in this show. Some feedback I got from a friend about Arrested Development was that it was hard for her to watch the show because she didn't really care about the successes that anybody on the show, you know, had. So similarly, I feel like The Office is like they try to make us fall for Jim and Pam, but I think Jim's a little douchey, especially later.
especially later. But still, it's just
I'm just saying that
as much
it's
as they are out for themselves, it's a solid. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it's a solid move. You know, it's not.
I mean, if Andy said he was gay, that's a solid. I mean, again, all they're doing is confirming what's already true. It's not like they're taking the heat for a lie.
Right. But they're also like deflecting away from Stanley's, you know, infidelity.
Yeah, well, because like I said, at some point that's going to come out. So if it's not tomorrow, it's 9 months from now if you think she can hide it that long. And even so, then it's both of those pieces of information are out while Stanley still has the opportunity to stop or whatever. Who knows?
Right. So Michael calls.
Yeah. Well, so he had called Terry prior to this meeting.
Right, but he also brought Jim and Pam into his office. Like, why didn't you tell me?
That's
They're like, Michael, we just told you. We just told our parents last week.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you should have told me. It's like, and they're like, you're right, Michael. He's playing to his ego. We should have realized you're an equal member of this.
Yeah.
Which I think that's, you know, as I know they do it because it's the only way to survive, but I feel like it's a like it's just more enabling than it is helping because he gives them a false sense of connection. Like, which we'll see down the line in like the guy, you know, in the christening episode where he thinks he has this very special connection with his child where he doesn't, you know?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's more of a live to fight another day kind of thing.
Right,
Because-
but I mean, if I think that if it mostly causes problems with them, you know, if they would, you know, pick a hill to die on, they would have less problems with Michael because he would have more boundaries. Like, I feel like everyone appeases Michael so he has no boundaries.
I mean, he gets kicked out of Phyllis's wedding like 2 minutes into the reception, you know? And he is reprimanded because of his involvement in Oscar's life, right? Oscar gets a huge settlement from the company and a
that's
car
all
and stuff.
from external sources. You know, I feel like if someone from his quote unquote family were to like really hit him, it would have more impact. You know, it's corporate being stupid. It's Bob Vance being jealous. It's whatever. You know, there's all sorts of other ideas going on in Michael's head.
I mean, Pam is going to slap Michael when he's dating her mom.
Right. And that's one reason I think Michael becomes a better and better character is because more and more people start setting up boundaries for Michael.
Jacob, Michael was as good as he possibly could have been, and now the show is devolving into some type of Flintstones comedy. It's over. Everybody just gets worse from here. That's it. Andy goes on a stupid boat trip.
That's season 9.
It's too close. It's too close. I feel it. It's over the horizon. It's going to be
That's
terrible.
like 9 months from now in our watchings, man. Come on.
It's all terrible. No, okay, but you raise a decent point. I feel like again you're giving Michael too much credit and thinking that he would learn from anything. I think that, and also too,
but it's proved he does learn from things. That's the thing is, after enough times, especially when it comes from people in his own circle, it's proved he does learn. Like he starts treating Dwight better after Niagara. After Dwight's like, I tested you and you proved yourself wanting, you know, kind of thing.
I mean, marginally so, because that dynamic is still about the same though until he leaves.
You're right, but there is more respect out of Michael towards Dwight.
All right, man. You and I are not seeing eye to eye at all. I'm telling
Well,
you.
this is when this podcast gets interesting, right?
I guess so. Until it starts devolving to Shylock gaming. Yeah.
Mike called Stanley's wife, Terry, and you know Jim and Pam are in his office, and they're like, "Don't pick it up. Don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it." And he picks it up. He's like, he gives a full explanation of how he's going to play it. He's like, I need my condo remodeled, whatever, which makes sense. You know, good way to go. He's like, picks up, hello, Cynthia.
Yeah.
Hold on just a moment. Hello, Cynthia. Jim just walks over and just hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
It's such a great visual of Jim just going, I'm just going to save him from himself. Click.
I mean, I guess because Terry had caught them previously, Cynthia had a special meaning in her head when he answered that way.
Right. Well, it also depends on, I mean, we see in Niagara that he introduces her as Mrs. Stanley Hudson. So maybe there's that sort of jealousy kind of thing. Even though later on we learn that Terry is okay with sharing, maybe it's something about the titles that gets her upset.
Well, I guess what I was going to say is he could have played it off as if he just had the wrong person on that line. I mean, he's
right.
a branch manager of a company. He could be talking to anybody on the phone and he hit the wrong line or whatever, you know. I mean,
right. Any other woman's name, if he said like Natasha or something, I don't know. But yeah, it definitely would have gone off a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, where he fell is after saying the wrong thing, he like let it sit there in silence for everybody to think about it. But that's the sign of a good BSer is always keep talking. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Write that on my tombstone, please.
All right, so the end of this episode is Stanley just beating the absolute shit out of Michael's car with a tire iron.
That's right.
And that's where you hear my Southern come out, tire iron. So is Stanley justified in doing this? Like, does he have the right to just kick the shit out of Michael's car?
I mean, legally, no.
But bro to bro. I mean, your bro screwed you. If your bro did you wrong, you have some rights to,
Yeah,
take
if we
your
go to
revenge.
pro code, but I don't know. It's tough. But Michael wouldn't do anything about it. Wouldn't press charges. He wouldn't ask Stanley to help pay for the damages or nothing. I'm sure he just
Well, they're
out
in a
of
bad.
pocket
I mean,
the
they're
whole
in a
thing.
bad part of town, right? So
right.
you can just claim up the hooligans who end up assaulting Andy in season 9.
That's
those
right.
12th grade, those 12-year-olds.
Trying to see if there's some trivia here. Apparently, Megan, one of the interns, was the high school student from the job fair. So, but I'm thinking there's a scene I'm recalling. No, I don't know. I wonder if she was in a deleted scene or something. So I'm trying to think of meaningful interactions that happened during the job fair, and it's just Justin, right?
Right, it's the only meaningful action, but it could be that he was like, hey, you should sign up because, Michael wants, quote unquote, hot people.
Yeah, like maybe if we saw her somewhere when Michael got up on stage and did his whole announcement to the gym or
Right.
something.
So it makes me kind of wonder if she's related or knows somebody on the cast.
Yeah. All right, man. So what do you think? You dug this episode. It's your favorite episode. What are you going to give it? 5 out of 5 or something stupid?
I like this episode, especially after season 5 coming out of that slog. Ugh. Because I think there's a lot more. The writers know what they're doing more with this quote unquote new office idea. They're also building into, well, what, Dunder Mifflin's finally gonna die. It has this sense of finality to it. So, but anyway, I gave this 3 out of 5. Brad Pitt's on the beach.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. So I gave it 2.5 out of 5. What's this all been for?
Thank you. That's next episode. All right, so we're going into season 6, episode 2, The Meeting, directed by Randall Einhorn, written by Aaron Shear.
Yeah. Sure.
So this is a really fun episode. The cold open is Michael is having a colonoscopy, and he brings Oscar in, which is weird that Oscar is consulted twice in 2 episodes about. I don't know why we say it. Being gay experience. I don't know.
Right.
Gayness. I don't know the right word here.
Sure.
And so he's like, what should I expect in terms of sensation? What should I expect? Can I do something to make it more pleasurable for me or the doctor?
Yeah, it's like his questions are off of a message board that asked the thing, but he didn't like those answers, so he just took the questions and asked them.
Oscar just nopes out. He just he puts his hands up, rubs his nose, and just walks out the door nope, I can't deal with it.
Yeah, it's great. So
we get in at the beginning of this episode, and the main story arc of this episode is Jim has pitched an idea to David Wallace. Yep. Where he would take over Michael's job, and Michael would be promoted into Jan's old job, Jan/Ryan's old job, head of Northeast Sales. And so what we learn is that Scranton has taken over all of Buffalo's accounts.
Yep.
Which is interesting. It's sort of a retcon. Maybe they reestablish later on, but in season 8, when they're fighting over when Big Red, is that season 9? Season 8. Big Red Bear paper happens. The guy from Rochester's like, you don't cross state lines. It's always been the case. But here, Scranton has had New York clients for 2 years now.
Right.
Maybe it's a new thing.
Or maybe it just wasn't popular though.
Maybe, or maybe
at
maybe
that point. I mean, is that still Dunder Mifflin?
Well, it's still Saber. That's true. It does transition to say that's Dunder Mifflin's Saber at the time.
Right. So
That's a good point. Maybe after that they redivided clients.
Yeah.
Something you don't talk about, but it could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so Michael doesn't know this though, right? So they have this good meeting with David Wallace or whatever, and then David says that him and Jim now will meet, and Michael is not involved.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to fault Jim here. I do, because in my experience and most of my dealings, like, I do have a master's degree in business and all this stuff. The best thing you can ever do about when you're trying to move to another job or get promoted is to talk to your boss. Don't skirt it. So I kind of blame Jim here.
Given Michael's history, though?
If Michael knew he was going to get promoted to James or Ryan's job, which he was going for in season 3,
yep,
he would have just been over the moon ecstatic about Jim taking over his job because he was getting moved up. Because we see this in the next episode where he's like, look, my opinions are more important than yours. So as long as he's getting moved up, he doesn't give a fuck about nobody. Man,
I don't know. I don't think that's true. Because if you look at, I don't know what season it is, but later on when Daryl moves on up, he's got that office about, that idea rather, about how to kind of maximize how the warehouse packs and loads trucks, right? And he tells that idea to Michael. Michael never passes it on.
Right, and Michael gets really pissy about it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Daryl proposed it to Michael first, and then Michael never shares it. That's where Daryl's forced to go over his head to tell Gabe, and then it gets approved. Right.
No, but this directly benefits Michael. Michael gets promoted, maybe moved to New York. Daryl's thing was just a good idea. Jim's thing.
But Michael could have taken that credit, though. He could have been like, listen, one of my warehouse guys and I were working and talking or whatever and done this. And
but Michael's too stupid to realize that. We've established that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that you can't give Michael a pass on one thing and say that he's knowledgeable enough to know that this is like an easy way for him to get promoted. I don't think that would, because I think you're not letting him focus enough on Jim taking over his branch that way.
Well, but when he thought for sure he was getting the job, he held tryouts, and Jim was his number one contender.
Yeah, but that was 3 years ago now at this point.
Right, but still, I think that if Jim had gone to him and said, look, I have this idea that involves you getting promoted and me taking your job, Michael being like, yes. Perfect.
I don't know. He just came back. This is 3 episodes away from the end of Michael Scott Paper Company.
And then all of a sudden, they want to move him to New York and make him an executive. That just
they are open to that idea.
That's just stroking Michael right there, man.
Oh my goodness! For those of you listening to the audio version of this, Michael. Oh man, I just Michael'd you, Jacob. All right, moving on. Right, so there's an argument definitely to be made that Jim should have let it. I disagree. I think Jim did it the right way, because I think if it came from David. Because also, too, Michael will fight everybody below him tooth and nail because of what you just said. His opinion matters more. If David is the one who says, hey, listen, what if we bring you up and put Jim in your place? Then I think that's when he's more susceptible to it,
Right.
Because
and,
at that point, it's already a guarantee.
Right, but... Okay, I'm going to tackle 2 subjects real quick. In The Office... You have to get Michael on your side because Michael's going to destroy things. That's just who he is. He's going to destroy things. In the real world, if you're trying to move up in your company, talk to your boss when you apply for a new job. It's the right thing to do. Add that to the Jacob wiki. Make it a pin post at the very top. Talk to your boss about moving jobs.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm just saying that Michael has proven more than enough times that he is a destructive force, involved or not involved.
Right, but imagine...
I'm saying that Michael is a very unique situation, and this Jacob rule of internal promotions maybe is applicable in the real world, but Michael is the worst person. And you texted me earlier this week to discuss the Peter principle, right?
Right.
Michael is at this precipice now. He is already currently incompetent for the role he is currently fulfilling.
Okay, so for the people who don't know, the Peter Principle was a business principle derived in the book The Goal, which I highly recommend reading. Even if you're not in operations research, highly recommend reading it. But the idea that is eventually someone will get promoted past their competency. And that is what Michael is. He's a guy who is the best salesman ever. And they're like, oh, you've got to be a great salesman. Then you must be great at leading salesmen. And they make him manager, and he's terrible at it.
Right.
I mean, that is essentially what the Peter Principle is. But still, if Jim, just think about this. Think about how Michael thinks about Jim. Jim goes, hey, Michael, I have this idea, and it involves you getting promoted to corporate. What do you think? Michael would eat that shit up because it's Jim saying you should go to corporate.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I think he would be. I'm not saying that he would immediately say no to that idea, but I think we're looking at a very different Michael Scott in 2009 than we had previously seen when he wanted the same role.
Right, but we also have. Well, I think he would want it more because Jane isn't there now.
I mean, he wanted it a lot then.
Right, because he could work with Jan.
That wasn't his only reason. It was a benefit, but I think generally, again, more money, more luxurious role. I think those are the more appealing things.
Right. I still think
he still wanted the job, even though Jan got fired.
Right. And I think maybe. I mean, if it were me, I would be like, it's about time. You know, it's about time I got moved up. He got passed over once. They realized their mistake, and now they're coming home. I mean, if I was a narcissist like he is, that's what my mind would be going through.
If Jacob was a narcissist. Don't call him one now.
Oh, narcissist. I have a very good opinion of myself. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I know my value. I know my worth. I know what I do well, and I know what I do poorly. So there you go.
There you go.
Which are the 4 keys of business.
All right. So let's just go off of Jacob's train of thought here. Jim has made a work faux pas. He's gone over Michael's head, and he's proposed a meeting with David to make this role suggestion that Michael be promoted out so that Jim can be promoted within, and theoretically speaking, everybody's happy, right?
Right.
Michael doesn't know any of this, though. So the fact that there is a closed-door meeting at all has him very...
Yeah, I mean, if I were Jim, I would have had that meeting offsite. Like, I would have been like, hey, I've got a sales meeting. And, you know, if you ever propose to David Wallace, like, look, Michael's crazy. We don't know what he's going to do until you talk to him. You could have had it offsite. You could have gone to a Starbucks or whatever, talk casually. Like, having it there at the office where Michael can see it was a bad idea. Just bad.
I mean, it should have been at some type of breakfast diner near some outlet stores.
Yeah.
Where David could get a teddy or, you know.
Or the Lane Taylor for his wife.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not. People have meetings, right? I meet with everybody in my office, from my immediate supervisor to their immediate supervisor, without that. Right. It's a thing that happens. Though I guess the problem is that David had said you're not allowed in this meeting.
Right. It's supposed to
but it's also just part of a corporate structure also.
But it's also, you know, everyone takes notice. So I work for a company. I won't say their name.
Well, what are you saying?
But
you work for a company.
But when we have representatives from Memphis show up, things are different than just normal meetings with my vice president.
Right.
You know, it's a bigger deal when I meet with these people from Memphis who are vice presidents than my own vice president. At least, in the social zeitgeist around the office. So it's one thing if there isn't that larger structure in this office. Everyone who's above Michael isn't there. Where I'm assuming where in your office you can probably go 4 or 5 levels above you and still have people there locally at the campus.
Yeah, give or take.
Because essentially there are 3 levels or 2 to 3 levels of workers at Dunder Mifflin Scranton, right? So we know Angela's head of accounting. So you have your heads, so they're a different level, but but for the most part, it's you and Michael in this one building. So there's no talking or just meeting with people day to day that are above Michael's pay grade.
Yeah, I know, but this also isn't day to day. Like, I'm just saying, like, it happens, and
right,
despite Jim's sneaky way of getting the meeting, it doesn't excuse Michael for sneaking in on a cheese cart, right? It doesn't excuse
I'm
him
not saying
from barging into the office while talking on the cell phone.
I'm not saying that what Michael does is right. I'm just saying that it's different because Wallace is there from New York, and Michael is the highest person in the office. So he should be in a meeting between Wallace and anybody. I mean, that's just a corporate structure thing.
Yeah, not necessarily though. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Keep going. So
do you even want to hit the B storyline, or we just want to keep going?
Refresh my memory here.
So B storyline is Daryl breaks his ankle.
Right, that's right. Yeah, so there's this fun little team up between Toby and Dwight where they are investigating Daryl's claim.
Right, and this is where we really learn about Toby's love for the hard-boiled detective.
Yeah, I mean, we've known, I think at this point, that he writes stories and such.
No, not yet.
Yeah.
No. I think the first time we hear him talking about his novels is when Joe, during the whistleblower episode, where they find it on his computer.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so we don't know yet, but now I guess this is where the seed's planted.
Right. So I'm going to bring something up.
Yeah.
Just because, so in this episode, we find out that Andy has this weird nebulous thing with his cousin, which is weird. Right. But, going off like Parks and Rec, I kind of wish they would made the cousin a character and made her sort of like a Mona Lisa Saperstein kind of person. Someone crazy who just comes to the office and disrupts shit, and Andy's unsure if he should sleep with her or not. Like, it's a terrible storyline, but it's a great character storyline.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, last episode we released, I had done with Amanda, and we did the webisodes. And to me, that was really refreshing because the humor came from like the natural awkwardness that occurs in a workplace, the walking down the hallway and saying hi to this person who you've said hi to 8 times that day, but you just keep passing by them and you feel like you have to acknowledge their presence, right? I guess what my issue with is what you just said, and then with the rest of the show moving forward is that it really kind of gets sitcom-y in a way that sometimes feels like it's a little more typical humor than like why I had bought into the show originally, if that makes sense.
No, that does make a lot of sense. It becomes more character-driven, less environment-driven, which, like, especially the first 2.5, 3 seasons were all about environment-driven humor.
Yeah. I mean, I just recently watched, and I wish I'd watched it sooner, but it's called What We Do in the Shadows, which is like a mockumentary out of New Zealand, and it features one of the guys from Flight of the Conchords and the dude who's directing the new Thor movie. He was starred in it and he directed it, but it's basically The Office, except we're following 100-year-old vampires in modern day New Zealand. And same thing, it's like, I don't know, it's just a very different type of comedy style, like you're saying. You know?
There's humor in the mundane.
Yeah.
And that's what the first
couple
I'd
seasons.
say 2.5 seasons. I would say near the end of the third season they go more character driven humor. But in the first 2.5 seasons of The Office is very much the humor of the mundane.
Yeah, and admittedly, how long could that go? But that's the argument as to why this show kept going for 6 years again after it kind of ends nicely at the end of season 3. But what is it? I had a friend in college and we had watched the Super Bowl episode when Stanley gets the heart attack. We watched it live on television, and he kind of shook his head. He's like, "This is kind of jumping the shark because that whole intro is just like insanity. That's not how a workplace would go, right?" But it starts on this weird thing that Dwight is starting a fire on purpose to show the training, so much so to sabotage all the doors so that no one can escape. And it's just like, how this is like some John Hughes Home Alone nonsense here, so it's those moments are really rare moving forward, I think. But the cheese cart is a situation where it's like, oh my goodness, it's like, come on, Michael.
Right.
This is not how a 40-year-old man would try to get into a meeting.
Right.
Admittedly, it's like his third attempt, so maybe it would be a 40-year-old man's third attempt into getting into
It's the airtight plan. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already established Michael's odd relation with reality. So
It is odd.
So I think part of this is that Michael is who he is, and I feel like he maintains a specific character throughout everything. Should I take a call from Comcast while I'm on the podcast?
I mean, if you guys are going to talk about The Office, maybe.
Anyway, so
yeah.
But I mean, it's Michael, and Michael is becoming more and more absurd as The Office has gone on.
Right.
Michael honestly becomes more of a caricature of himself than anyone else, which is something I hate, because if you watch a lot of sitcoms, especially like Friends, other things, is where How I Met Your Mother is another good one, where they're like they become caricatures of themselves.
Right.
They only become certain personality traits instead of being full, complete characters, which is bad for Michael, but it does make sense in the whole mythos of The Office.
Yeah, I mean, there's times moving forward, and we're definitely on a tangent here, but like when Holly comes back, it's a better Michael to me because he has a focus, right? And Holly does make him want to be a better person because even though she shares some of his oddities, she's like a regular good person.
Right. Well, and we're also in this weird time where Michael doesn't have a focus because we're working into the point to where he's dating Pam's mom, and then we go into him dating Donna, which is a whole other thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like
I think we're going to lose a lot of listeners in those episodes. Just an FYI.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Because there's a I guess it's always things that are frustrating to me, especially within a franchise, is when a story covers a plot point that we've already resolved, So Michael obviously found Holly, but he's not with her. So we're retreading this water of Michael dating women and either him being weird or them being weird, right? And we've seen this before already, and I guess that's why sometimes it like kind of makes me roll my eyes as we're going to approach it again in this season, because it's like we saw this already,
Right. I mean, I feel like in this season of Michael that it's he's. I mean, obviously the Pam's mom storyline is funny for very obvious reasons, right?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's a good episode or two full of jokes. They're cringy, but they're funny. It just The entire Back from the Honeymoon episode is really fucking funny.
Yeah.
Just because of the whole thing. So I get that. The Donna sleeping with a married woman thing, I don't really get why they did it.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I mean, 'cause again, if we're talking about the character development, it's like, what does Michael learn from that? I mean, the only thing that comes to the top of my head right now is that maybe he's at like the bottom of his barrel now.
Well, he's about the bottom of the barrel, but there's also a very good, I mean, and we'll hit this in the next, when we hit it, but there's a very good Michael moment where he says, I have to decide if I want to be happy or happy with myself. And I chose the second one. So he realizes after seeing the husband, what he has done is bad. Yeah. So it actually does build. I mean, the Pam's mom thing is completely for humor.
Right.
The Donna thing is, I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing, and we'll get there when we get there.
Right. Okay, let's get back on track. That's my fault. I'm just disagreeing with Jacob left and right, and he keeps having to defend himself.
Hey, man, this is why people listen to us. Okay, so we are in. Let's.
Well, there's a small C story, right?
Yeah, Pam trying to get people to come to like RSVP for the wedding, and Meredith goes, "Whatever is fanciest, unless there is ribs."
That's right. And she'll text Pam the morning of her wedding for directions.
Well, still, again, this is 2009. The first multiple Android systems have been out by now. Everyone's got a fucking smartphone.
Right. MapQuest, Google Maps, Yahoo Maps, anything. Jesus.
And Meredith was staying at the hotel.
Yeah.
Like, she just has to go, hey, Kev, let me ride with you. Or, hey, Kev, you want to ride with me? And they're there, kind of deal.
Right.
All right. So what are you giving this episode?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna stick with my 2.5.
God,
out
hater.
of 5.
Hater.
Look at all these cheeses.
You're just a fucking hater, man.
Yeah.
I really like this episode. It's got some good character development. It's got good. It's pulling people away from Michael. I don't know when Steve Carell said he was leaving, but it starts making these characters different people. They aren't dependent on Michael, so we see a lot of that. But yeah, I liked it. A 3.7 out of 5 Big Birds.
Nice. Okay, next up we've got The Promotion. Written and directed by Jennifer Solata. So this is the episode where all of the secret meeting from before has come to fruition.
Right. And there's this great cold open where Dwight's trying to get his expense report signed, and they're just, bucking it to each other.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why Jim would do this. I really don't. Like, if I were Jim in this situation, especially with someone like Dwight, because once the job is there, people can make case for being in that position over you. I would have been like, sure, dude, man, just, whatever. Like, I would have, that just seems like a stupid thing for Jim to do.
Well, let me ask you this. Do we think back in season 3, if Jim stayed in the running for that new job, do you think he would have gotten it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, because that's what I wonder. It's like Jim has shown this initiative to move up in a way that Dwight has done all of these secret meetings that we joked about last time. So, like, Jim's, what do you call it? Jim's motivation to move forward within the company is, like, public knowledge, I guess, is my point.
Right. Right. And
Dwight coming at it from this perspective might seem weird. And plus, I guess David Wallace is so involved in the goings-ons at Scranton that he probably knows Dwight's a little bit of an oddball anyways, but... Jeez.
Right. Well, it actually raises an interesting question about Dwight. So, I mean, maybe he's just happy where he is. You know, there are some
Right.
people who are great at what they do and they like where they do it and they don't want to move up, right? But you would think that he would have to at least be given interviews because he's the best salesman at the branch, right?
Yeah.
And has been for years. Like, he would be the number one candidate if he went for them. So the question is, why doesn't he go for them?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I guess we could blame it on his relationship with Michael.
Well,
because
that,
up
and
until
I
this
also,
season-
I mean, he also has, you know, ties, right? I mean, he's
Right.
got his bee farm, he's got mows, he's got all that stuff, which is important to him.
right.
But still, I mean, you would think that he, among anyone else, would be asked to interview. I mean, if they're going to ask Jim to interview and Karen, they have to ask Dwight to interview if they're being honest
Well,
with themselves.
Jim and Karen called, though. They said they'd like to be considered for that position.
That is true. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I was thinking wrong. You're right.
Yeah, and not for nothing, but in regards to this particular cold open and the prank, Jim's only asking him to say please.
Right. I mean, that's true. That is true. But, I mean, I couldn't be that.
Imagine that write-up, right? Dwight does this whole thing to Toby about how Jim is hindering from him doing his job. They call in Jim, and he's all like, yeah, because Dwight came barging in and didn't just say please. Like, then it kind of seems like Dwight's wasting everybody's time by filing a complaint.
Right. It's just one of those deals where I look at it and go, you know, that is your job.
Right.
You know, I mean, this might be, you know, talking to Jim's douchiness later, but his job is to sign that expense form, no matter who is asking for it. So he shouldn't be fucking with Dwight. That's his job. That is his job to sign that expense report, and I feel like he should be more professional than he was.
Yeah, well, again, I just spent the last 20 minutes telling you how I hate everybody in this show moving forward. So you're totally right that Jim is kind of being a little petty in this situation here.
Right, and that's kind of just where I'm banging off of things. It's like, dude, come on, it's your job. This is your job.
Right.
Do your job.
Right. Yeah, so Dwight ping-pongs between everybody to get this thing signed, and this is where we kind of discover what the two roles are for these two co-managers as they're named. So we've got Michael, who is responsible for the big picture concepts. We are not told what those big picture concepts are at the moment, but that's kind of what this episode tries to explore, is figuring out what those are. Jim is responsible for the day-to-day items like the expense reports or, I guess what have you. But obviously it's not clearly defined because we get to a situation later where they are given a task that for whatever reason they both want in on it. But I would say that it's not a great job. It's kind of akin to Dwight being tasked with finding a new insurance policy for the company back in like season 1 or 2, where it's a role where you make a decision that can either be favorable or unpopular with your staff, and then you get kind of yelled at or whatever. So David calls and he says, hey, listen, I need you guys to, like, basically we can't give out cost of living wages this year. You know, the raise budget is very tiny. I think it's like 1% or something like that, or it's small. So it's up to the branch managers, and in this situation, the two of them, to decide how to divvy up the small budget that is afforded to them to give these raises. And they bicker a little bit about who that would fall under, because from Michael's perspective, it's like, these are their living wages, and it affects like how they perceive the company. So it's my job. And Jim feels like it's his job because it's, it's like, this is your paycheck every week. It's day to day. This is kind of a business as usual kind of concept. But David reveals that really he'd like both of them to focus on this task because it kind of affects everybody in the office. So both managers should be responsible for dictating who gets these raises. Although a very great bit that we get to see is Michael trying to figure out what the professional name for Jim is.
I don't know how he got to Jimothy. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's
Tim
like
to
James.
Timothy, or like if you like James Jimothy, like I don't get that, right? Like it's just
Right.
such a crazy jump.
And of course, Jim's like, "Yep, that's it. We'll take it." So they end up in the conference room to discuss who gets these raises.
Right, but an interesting thing is we were discussing a line of toilet paper. So apparently Dunder Mifflin was looking at making office level toilet paper.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which
I don't know.
honestly is not a crazy thing because most paper mills produce toilet paper.
Right.
You know, all the major ones. I can't think of any of them, but they all make every paper product because they have the ability to do it.
Yeah, and you don't. You do it like a sub brand.
Right. You don't call it Dunder Mifflin toilet paper.
That's right. Yeah, you call it whatever. Love Booty toilet paper or something like
Wipe Easy.
that. Exactly, something classy.
Cheesy.
Toilet Buddy. So I don't know. So how would you do this, Jacob? You are given this task to give people raises in the office, but you know that it's a hugely reduced amount of funds available to you.
Honestly, I blame it on corporate. I just sent out the email, look, corporate says we have this much money. And I would even put out the number. Corporate says we have this much money for raises. That means everyone gets this amount of money. And done. Everyone would hate it, but they would be mad at corporate and not at me.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's like an easy way to do it, right? Just like, no, it's
yeah.
not me. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to get a bit more creative, though, when I was thinking is like, maybe I don't have the authority to do this, but if they had changed the sales people's commission structures, they could have given them no raises and actually incented them to have more money.
Right. I mean, to me, when I watched it, the first thing that came to my mind was like, why make this public announcement to everybody at the same time?
Right. And I mean, that's what, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing a public, I mean, I would do it the easy way. I would go and say, and I would blame corporate. I would have a presentation, bring everyone to the conference room, like, look, this is the honest truth. We have this much money for raises.
Right.
And so we're just going to divide evenly among everyone.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I'd go. I feel like, yeah. Really, you just got to blame corporate. That's it. There's no other thing that you can do anyway. So why try to?
Or you say, look, we're going to give the non-salespeople this bigger raise, but we're going to change the salespeople commission structure to where they're gaining an extra 3% on sales.
Yeah, if they're allowed to do that though with budget.
Right,
concerns and
assuming
stuff.
that's allowed, whatever. But I mean, I would just go even across the board.
Yeah, it just seems like the way to go. I mean, presumably that's how they probably did it in the past, right? Now it's just the same but less money.
Right. I mean, but you also have the whole merit-based raise thing, which is important. So, but it's hard to mix those apples and oranges, sales and non-sales in a company like this.
Right.
So you need to deal with them differently. And so that's how I would look at it.
Yeah. I mean, the bean idea was a good idea, but you shouldn't have left that room by itself.
Right. And so it's 2009. When this was recorded, it was 2009. They have ability to answer their corporate emails on their phones. Why didn't they do that?
What do you mean?
All right. So the reason they leave the room is because Aaron comes in and says, David Wallace has sent an email. He wants both of you to reply.
Right.
They should have been able to do it from their phones.
Yeah, and I mean, and even if not, because again, let's buy into this world where these smart enterprise level phones don't exist. We take turns replying to the email.
Right, right.
But you let Dwight sneak in there, and then he lets everybody else in, and Pam's got no beans on her face, and it's like, oh my god. There we go.
But you know, like, I mean, this kind of gets into Andy's character, where he's like, Stanley does deserve more beans than me, even though he admitted his sales are way down.
That's right. Yeah, a couple times. And honestly, that's just kind of what he does moving forward. He's just a terrible salesman.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wonder why the shift. I mean, that's a writer's thing, and I know you don't like when the writers do Andy wrong, but still, it seems like a weird thing.
I don't like why they do him wrong, because like what you're asking is like, why did they do it? Aside from the fact that I think they needed a character who was just not good at their job for whatever reason, you know?
Well, I mean, he does. The thing is, though, in this episode, he says it's because of the economy, which, you know, in this episode you can buy because this was during the crash.
Right, but I mean, again, he's one of 4 or 5 sales reps now in this office. No one else is accusing the economy of being a problem.
Right, but maybe he thrived on those higher dollar clients. You know, that was his brand. He only had like, you know, where Dwight might have 100 clients, he has got 20, but he's got 20 high value clients.
Yeah, I mean, that is possible, but that's the thing. I mean, like, they go out of their way to write Andy as a terrible person, or sales rep, also person. We get there. But they don't give us that explanation other than this throwaway line of, oh, it's the economy.
Right. But he just sells just says his sales are down. Too many S's. Right. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, because he even says to Charles last season, right? He's all like, I feel like I should be, you know, judged differently because I'm new here.
Even though he's been there for 2 years.
Right. And he's got all types of excuses for being a bad sales rep, but
even though I work at a company where they're like, if you haven't been here for 5 years, you don't know what's going on. Like, I heard people say that. I'm like, I didn't say anything. I was like, really, bitch? You want to go? Let's go. Yeah, it's a discretion is the better part of valor, and I use it a lot at work. I'm just like, oh, okay.
So there's another storyline going on here. Now Pam is going around, this time clarifying information for the gifts for the wedding. And specifically that they want cash.
Right.
Right. So you have a great note here because Kevin writes a check for Pam. The first successful I will give you money offering.
Who loves eternal glory.
Yeah.
And you know what? I wish I could have registered for cash. I mean, most of our gifts we used, but you know, wedding gifts are really good if you're 22.
Right.
They're not so good if you're 29. When you've been living on your own, have your own, you know, you've had to buy everything. You know, I almost like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is like back in the day, presumably, you know, couples didn't live together until they were married.
Right.
But like when me and my girlfriend moved in together, we brought the contents of 2 full apartments into one apartment. And we had actually way more stuff than we needed.
Right. That's what happened. I mean, me and my wife, we didn't get married. We didn't live together until we were married, but that was more geography than anything else.
Right.
But yeah, we had to consolidate 2 apartments. She didn't have a lot, but I mean, between the 2 of us, we had 2 sets of pots and pans, 2 sets of silverware, 2 sets of all sorts of stuff. So, you know,
right.
Like the most out of everything I've gotten out, like we got 1 really nice set of knives, and that was nice. Like they were a nice set of knives, like $1,000 set of knives, which are great. But the only other thing I've really gotten a whole lot of use out of is all the Blu-rays we registered for, because we're nerds and we like to watch movies and TV. So we registered for a lot of Blu-rays, but that's about it. Like, I wish I
Well-
could have registered for just like cash, like gift cards.
Well, it's tough. I mean, because not for nothing, but like, so we know that Jim and Pam are tight on money, right? And if we haven't known that, we know that that's going to be a thing moving forward, and then this kind of cements that concept. They have a wedding out of state at Niagara Falls. You know, it's like, it just seems crazy to me that like why have this big wedding anyways? They were already teasing the idea of getting eloped in Ohio or whatever. And that would
Right,
have only
but,
cost them the
they
gas
talk
money.
about it, and we'll talk about it soon, is they were hoping that going to Niagara would discourage people from coming.
Yeah, I mean, they do say that, but it ends up being a huge wedding. But that's all cost, you know.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Like, why pay for a wedding anymore in today's economy if that's what we're going to blame it on, Andy? You know, because like that's your reception, your actual wedding, hiring a photographer and a videographer and a DJ and all the catering, and you're just like, who cares? It's so much.
it is so much. I mean, I don't know.
Even if they
Are we
got
actually
every
going to hit
single person,
Niagara
there's
this
no way they pick
episode?
that one.
Because we're getting pretty deep on these three.
Yeah, maybe we'll push Niagara off till next
But
time.
I mean, if I could do it all over again, I would get married at the JP and just have a really nice reception.
yeah,
Because
that's
Pam
that's what it
Pam
should
has
be.
this perfect line where she's like, "Why do we invite all these people?"
Yes,
And it's so true. Well, and the craziest thing is that I was told going into the wedding was the people you 100% expect to come won't, and the people you don't expect to come will.
right.
And that was true. Like, I mean, I was super glad he was there, but one of my friends from college who lived in Montana flew down for my wedding, where some of my wife's family who lived within driving distance didn't come. You know, it was just,
Yeah. That's nuts.
I mean, yeah, I had a friend from college fly down from Montana where my grandparents didn't come, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. Weddings.
Weddings are
Call me-
crazy. I mean, they're
It's like, you call me a millennial.
if you're the thing. Here's what you need to do. You need to get an enforcer if you're the bride, especially
Yeah.
if you're the bride. Get an enforcer, because that's what our wedding planner was when we got married. She was an enforcer.
Uh-huh.
Like, my wife was like, "Don't let my mom within 10 feet of me," and she didn't let her. Like, she was just like, no one fucked with her unless unless my wife was like, she's okay. It was a full on like VIP zone around my wife, and that really helped.
Yeah, I mean, you need that. You gotta cut people short on like who's talking to them for too long and all that stuff. It's the only way, because you never enjoy your wedding day. I mean, again, I used to work at weddings as a videographer, and like, there's no way. Those people are being harassed all the time. They paid us at the end of the night, which means they're walking around with their checkbooks already. Then you get people who are complaining about what foods they get and stuff.
Well, that's why we did everything in advance. So when we got there, it was done. It was just all done.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the wedding day was tough. I mean, I remember snippets from my wedding day, but like once we got into the evening, it was just us. That's when we really had a good time.
Right.
You know, like we were just like out by ourselves at a bar drinking. No one cared. Just having a good time, you know?
Yeah.
Weddings are way too expensive. Just don't spend the money, guys. If you're listening, just don't spend the money. Go to the JP, have a good reception. I mean, if you love that person, the wedding doesn't matter.
That's right. So you have a note here also about Kelly freaking out about this potential raise thing. And we're trying to figure out what happened to Ryan's car, because apparently it broke.
Well, right, but Kelly walks in carrying bags of, like, looks like she's been at the mall.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And she puts it down. It's like, how's that going to repair Ryan's car? So apparently she's involved with, dealing with Ryan's car.
Internet doesn't say, so I don't know what happened to her car. But yeah, maybe it was just like a ding in the mall or something. Seems weird.
Well, it seems like Ryan's car is broke. That's what it seems
does.
like. And
Like it was wrecked.
it comes up at some point where Ryan says, oh, no, it comes up during Michael Scott Paper Company that he rides with his mom
That's right.
as one of his pros. So, green friendly.
So maybe it's not fixing a car, but maybe it's that he's trying to get a car.
Or maybe he bought a cheap one and it broke down. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's established and maintained a few times through the series that he bilks money from her.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, before he goes to Thailand, he's all like, I need to loan a couple bucks and we should have sex.
But even then, there are a lot of times until they are quote unquote done.
Yeah.
That she talks about giving him a lot of money.
Right.
Ryan, you're a terrible person.
Well, I hope he got that Xbox. Because that's what he was working for.
So it's one thing I did want to talk about is, so the whole raises situation, right?
Yeah.
This is one area where people always want to talk about knowing their bosses and being friends with their bosses or whatever. But this is one of those areas where it's good to have that divide. Not antagonistic divide where you're like, oh, I hate my boss, whatever. But there is a gap between you and your boss or higher people when they're trying to give raises.
Right.
Because the more friendly you are with someone, the less authority they have. So I feel like that's what happened in this episode where they're just like, everyone knew Jim. He was really friendly with them. They knew Michael. And so they were kind of stripped of all their authority. Where, even Jim, in this entire band of episodes, doesn't feel like he has authority at all.
Right.
Except for because I believe this is when he shuts Ryan in the closet. But
yeah, that's around this time. And I think also we're kind of around the time of the koi pond.
Yeah, that's come up too.
Yeah. No, so it's true. He never really gets a grip. And then once Saber comes on, Joe removes that position anyways.
Right. Yeah, so
the only reason why I could think David even let this whole thing go is that Scranton just must be doing such huge volume of sales that that's the only way they could rationalize that,
Well, actually, here's my idea. So Alan, because he talks about, needing Alan's consent. And even when he calls back, he's like, look, I talked to Alan. He had this crazy idea about two managers. So I believe that Michael would have gone to New York and Alan did not want him there. And that's why they had the two manager ideas.
Huh. Because who is Alan?
He's a
Is he
CEO.
the CEO? CEO? Yeah.
So, Alan so Jim has this crazy idea to get Michael moved up to New York. And then after it's all said and done, Alan has the idea to keep Michael in Scranton.
Right. Yep. I mean, that makes sense.
And the issue really is they didn't stratify. Because putting them on the same level was a mistake. If you're going to have two manager type people, you have a senior manager and vice manager kind of positions instead of co-manager, especially when someone's been manager for as long as Michael has been. To ask him to he's essentially asking Michael to take a demotion is what's happening. And so I get why Michael pitched a fit. I really do. So it really should have been a tiered structure where, yes, Jim gets promoted, but he's still under Michael, in the structure.
Yeah, I mean, when I had said it before too, but really, it just seems like there wasn't a clear definition of what they were responsible for.
Right.
It seemed like really they were given big picture, little picture.
And it kind of seemed like they were just trying to get Michael to quit. I mean, that's kind of the feeling I got. They were like, fuck it, we're just going to promote Jim and get Michael to quit.
Yeah, I mean, corporate can't really be liking Michael too much again because we're still so close to Dunder Michael Scott Paper.
But he makes the money, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's probably hit or miss, but someone must have been crunching numbers and figuring out, like, really how much of it is Michael's doing or not. You know, they had him do the lecture circuit. They had him have that one-on-one with David. Nothing was shared. There was no information there, you know?
Right,
Michael
right.
really just stumbling blindly through this thing, and I bet, like you're saying, if they're trying to push him out, they're just assuming that branch could kind of run itself. It kind of does after, later on when Will Ferrell's there and then he's incapacitated. We find out that the office is kind of like running without a boss, and it seems to be going okay.
Right, which I understand for salespeople. I mean, not having a really tight manager for salespeople makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I work in a very project-oriented business, so I understand having someone who is dictating the timelines for projects.
Right.
But that's not sales. It's completely different, you know, so.
Right.
So anyway, they had this really terrible fiasco with the beans, right?
Right.
And so everyone's angry, and Michael comes into Jim's office with another world's greatest boss mug, gives it to him, and he takes a whiff of it. He's like, "What's in this?" He's like, "Gin."
Yeah.
And what I really like about this episode is the beginning. Michael hates dealing with this alone, like with Jim. He hates it.
Yeah.
He just hates it. At the end, he realizes it's really nice to not take all of the blame.
Right. Yeah, it's a nice moment. I mean, it's kind of a mirroring of that moment after Survivor Man, where Michael comes back and Jim kind of like talks about his failed efforts with the birthdays and such. And, it's one of the few moments where Michael gets this relief of being able to share the burden of his position with someone else.
Right.
And then I guess it's like gives Jim some insight into Michael's brain and that he's not really just blindly doing whatever. Like there's a little bit of method to his madness. Yeah, little bit, but there's some.
Even though we got way off track on this episode, what are you giving it?
I'm going to say it's a 2.7 out of 5.
God, you're a terrible person.
2.7 out of 5. I deserve more beans than Stanley.
Even though Andy does not deserve more beans.
He certainly does not.
I like this episode. I think it really gets things moving for this season. It's funny. So I gave us a 4 out of 5. Fixing Ryan's car.
Oof. I didn't know we were just giving out good votes for free today.
I really like this season. This is one of my favorite seasons. I love season 6.
It opens up. I think I like it better later.
You better.
We should all hope.
So anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Jacob Ingalls. We're at brokenjars.xyz/Great Scott. We're on YouTube if you want to see us yammering at each other. We're all over the place. Please hit us up. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/brokenjars if you want to like hang out on our Discord, all that good stuff.
That's it. Check out Dangerous to Go Alone. We shifted our schedule just like Great Scott shifted as well, so you'll be listening to Great Scott this week and check out Dangerous to Go Alone next week. And I think High Fantasy comes out next week also.
Yep. It will come out next week.
So there you go. All types of good stuff coming out of Broken Jars.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
What? Yes. Bye.
Oh, balls. Well, according to Zencast, you have 50 megabytes left, so that worked out.
Yeah, we squeaked right in.
We got so far off track there.
Yeah, you sound a lot better. That like second half of that whole show, you sounded like you were auto-tuned.
Well, luckily it records me locally and you locally, so
Locally, that's what I figured. Yeah.
that's what it does.
You left or whatever. I didn't know when you came back.
Yeah.
That's the Chromebook. It's got like so little RAM and stuff. It just doesn't do great.
Man, I need to just make you like a Raspberry Pi podcasting computer.
Yeah, I should do something. I mean, really, I got this just so I could write for D&D and stuff like that. But I bought it living with my brother, who had like a souped up PC. Now that he's moved out, it's like shit. I didn't realize how much it.
Yeah, we're
PC. My girlfriend's laptop will freeze at the moment, and the Chromebook's holding up pretty well.
what's the date?
Today's the 5th?
6th.
6th.
That's not what I want. We may not have a YouTube to upload, even though I told to record. Got it. General. JUp/videos. Oh, that's not good.
What size graphic do you want? It's like a 16:9, basically.
Yeah, just whatever YouTube will take. I just, I was looking over it, and I was like, it might just be better to have a graphic instead of just our random image that they take.
Right.
I know I recorded it. Oh, there it is. That's a big file. I'm gonna have to start. I'm gonna need to get another hard drive for this.